All right, welcome to the program. It is 9 minutes after 12 noon now on a, what is it? It's a Tuesday afternoon, right? Sun is out. Tim's got the blinds closed. We want to invite you to WBSM.com. And where are we at, Tim? We're on Twitter. We're on YouTube. YouTube. Okay, you can go on YouTube Live, WBSM YouTube Live, because we have a very, very special guest in the studio today, and you'll be able to watch what's happening there just as though you were watching it on television. So go to just WBSM YouTube, and boom, it'll pop up, and you can watch it right there. Jim Leal is with me, and Jim Leal is a Fairhaven resident, Fairhaven native. He's a survivor of the Korean War, and or the Korean conflict, right? And Jim served up on Pork Chop Hill with my uncle Howard Prescott, who some of you know or remember. He passed away a few years ago, about 3 years ago now. And Pork Chop Hill was probably one of the most brutal and bloody battles of all of the Korean War. Lasted about 3 years, the war did. Actually, we had an armistice in '53, and there's never really been a conclusion of the war. So technically the war is still on at this point. 65 years later, it'll be 65 years in July. But one of the more bloody confrontations and brutal confrontations of the whole war was Pork Chop Hill. And Jim Leal of Fairhaven served in that conflict along with my uncle Howard Prescott. And only a few men came down from the hill after that battle was over. Jim and my uncle were two of them. And the two worked very, very hard when they got back here in the United States to, over the years, to lobby for and to finally win funding for a Korean War monument, which you can see at the Klasky Park. It's right there at the top of the Klasky Park on County Street. And the events of the last 24 hours or so have been extremely riveting for people like me, but even more so for people like Jim, because Jim was there. And our service people who served in Korea and their wives, maybe they're surviving widows or their children or whatever, everybody is looking for some sort of closure to this whole Korean conflict. And we're hoping that this might be the thing that ushers it in. The summit last night went much more, or was much more successful than anybody thought that it would be. And we seem to be on a road at this point. Although, as Reagan said, you trust but verify, right? We seem to be on a road to a denuclearized Korean peninsula, which would obviously include at some point an official document that would end the Korean War once and for all. Jim, thanks for coming in today. I appreciate you taking some time on short notice to come in and see us today.
Yes. Okay. I tell you, I'm so happy. I was watching it all day yesterday, and I couldn't believe what's happening. And it may not really happen, but at least we're looking forward to it. It can happen, and that's such a great thing in my lifetime. For me to still be alive after 65 years and seeing this happen, which Howard Prescott, which is a very good friend of mine, which is his uncle, he's already, as he mentioned, he passed away about 2 or 3 years ago, so he didn't see that. I've seen it. I was very fortunate to last till this time, and hopefully that's the way it goes, and we need it so badly, and we got so many people still there that like to see their bodies come home and buried.
Absolutely. So, yes. So what did now you watched a lot of the coverage on TV last
yes.
night, right? What were you thinking about? What were you hoping to see, and what did you see that made you happy?
Well, the thing is, I was hoping to see it happen, and I know it's going to be a long thing. It isn't going to happen like it did last night, or it's happened in a week. It's going to take longer than that. But at least there's a start. We've never had a start on this, and thank God for Trump, because it's happening. Whatever he's done the right thing, and he's my hero. And with that there, I just like to see there's so many bodies still there, and bodies that were in my company and people I knew personally, they're still there. Just on Pork Chop Hill, we've got about 200 bodies that never came off. And there was a battle there for 5 days, and we had 1,300 casualties in 5 days. And hopefully, we get these bodies back, and they're finding some, and there's quite a few from the Chosen Reservoir. My outfit was up there, and there's a fellow that lives, used to live on Mill Road, and his body never came home. and he got killed up there. He got the Distinguished Service Cross, and he's down to the museum down at Fort Taber, at the military museum in the Korean side, which I had a lot to do with that, and so did Prescott do. And I made a metal case for him, and it's there. And his story is there, and he lived right on Mill Road, and there's a stone in the cemetery right off off the highway here, and they got his name on it. And of course his sister lived in Mattapoisett, and she's on there. But I'd like to see his body come back and buried there.
How important is it to you that this agreement, that when Trump went to Singapore,
yeah,
he insisted on that POW MIA issue, that we want these remains back? How important is that to the folks?
Oh my God, it is. Anybody I know has been there, is, of course they want to see them back, and I want to see them back. I want to see that closure. Yeah. I want to see their bodies brought back. And it's I get too emotional when I think about that. But when you see people, there were so many bodies. My God, there were so many bodies there. But anyway, and it's probably one of my best times in my life will be right now to see it happening and coming to an end, and hopefully it does work. But at least it's a start.
Did you ever think you'd see it end? I mean, just what, 4 months ago we
never thought that would happen.
Yeah.
Never.
4 months ago we were on the verge of war.
That's right. That's right.
What did you think then when you saw that things were getting hotter and hotter and hotter? Well, you must have been, oh my God.
Well, I knew that Trump wasn't going to let it to get out of hand. But and any bomb today, atomic bomb that explodes where it goes, it kills millions of people. And people have no idea what that's like. And then I have friends of mine that say, hey, let's get into war. They have no idea. We don't have the wall as we did in the Second World War. I had two brothers. One was with Patton, and the other guy was in the Army Air Corps. So they both had 5 battle stars. And they had their stories, and they kept quiet, and I understand that. And they had their stories, but the war's different. This is a total different war. We just can't just say let's do something, because you're talking millions of people are going to die from it, and I don't want to see that happen ever.
So then we go from almost going to war,
yep,
to Trump saying, "Okay, I'm going to go there and meet with these guys," and then a couple of weeks after that, they canceled it.
Yes.
That must have been a big disappointment.
Oh, yeah, it was a disappointment for me.
Yeah.
It was a disappointment. And I'm so happy that it worked out the way it did. And I don't know if any other president would have done that as Trump did. I have no idea where that happened. But he did say that if they open the door, I'll come in. And which is what I'd have done or you'd have done. And that's what you should do. And whatever it takes to keep a war away from us, it's got to happen. It's not the time to say, oh, let's go get them. You can't just go get them anymore. There's atomic bombs out there. You have no idea what that does.
Do you trust Kim Jong Un?
I don't trust. No, I don't trust him. But I'm hoping. But it's the first time that anything like this is happening, and if there's an opening door, let's go through it.
What do you think brought him to the table? What do you think made him want to talk after all these years?
I think what brought him to the table was the fact that Trump played as hard as he did, and if he hadn't played as hard as he did, probably that wouldn't have happened. But he knows that Trump's not going to fool around. Either you're going to do it or going to put the sanctions against you, which he was going to do it. And there's no question that China talked to them, which China was the one that has anything to say to him that he would change. And there's no question in my mind they were right behind that. And I'm so happy for that. So that's the one we got to. And when he said, I got sanctions ready to go in place, and I'll just walk out. And when somebody says that, you know they're serious. And I'm so happy he did that. Wow.
So here we are, 1950, right?
Yep.
Times are good. World War II is over. Your two brothers are home from World War II.
Yep.
And did you ever imagine we'd go so quickly from the end of World War II into another conflict like
Never
this?
thought that.
34,000 Americans died in that 3-year period.
Well, actually, when you think of it, there was 32, 33 that got killed supposedly in Korea, and there's 8,000 missing. Where's the 8,000?
Right.
You add that together, and you got 41,000 people get killed in 3 years.
So you're a young man in New Bedford. You're looking forward to your future and everything. All of a sudden, boom, the government calls you and says, time to go, Jim. We got to send you over to this place called Korea.
Well, that's
what
happened.
What did you know about Korea at that point?
Nobody knew anything about Korea. I had no idea. I had no idea when I went there. And of course, in those days, remember, we thought the war was going to start in Berlin at those days. And that's why most of the people, even the people I went through basic with, there's 200 men in a company in basic training. And I would say most of them went to Germany because they figured the war was going to start there. And as it was, there was only probably 4 or 5 of us from a company of 200 men that ended up going to the Far East, which was basically ended in Korea.
Yeah.
And once I got there, they sent me to medical school, and I really didn't want to go there. I was already a rifleman, well trained. They trained me well when I was in basic, and I had one officer say to me, you're in the Army. You don't tell us where you want to go. We're going to tell you where to go. So I became a medic, and that was okay. Whatever job I'm going to do as the best I can.
How old were you when you landed in Korea?
At the time when I landed in Korea, I was 21.
21 years old.
Yeah.
Did you ever imagine that 65 years later you'd still be talking about that this would be pretty much your life story, right?
Nope. I just thought that the war would finally end, however, and that just the war would end, and it never did. Right. And 65 years today. Wow. We've gone forever. And it's such a pity that, like with Howie Prescott, he never saw it happen. And there's no question he's looking down at us now. And of course, he'd be happy also. Yeah. Yeah.
So they gave you guys a gun, and they gave you a helmet, and they said, okay, get up this hill. This is a pork chop hill over here. Get up there and hold the hill, right?
Yeah. Well, I went there as a medic.
Okay.
Yeah.
So how many guys went up the hill?
Well, we've had 1,300 casualties in 5 days. 1,300. And there's still, and they claim there's still 200 bodies there. Still.
How many came down that hill when it was all over?
Well, when it was all over, well, a lot of the bodies were taken off of there. The Korean service workers, the older Koreans that couldn't go into service and fight the war, they would take them and send them up there, and they were the ones that would pick up the bodies and bring them down and put them in.
How many survivors came down that hill?
Come down our hill. My company, there was 12 of us. 12. In my company. Other companies, apparently they're about the same thing. Some might have done 15, 20, but there wasn't a lot of survivors that came out of there. Right. And I didn't expect to leave there either.
Yeah. So what was that like? I mean, that must have been
very noisy.
Very noisy.
A lot of artillery. A lot of artillery. And most everybody, being a medic, of course, this is what I did, and most everybody that got hit over there got hit by artillery rounds, and I didn't see hardly anybody that ever got shot. Really, never seen anybody that. So the artillery came in so bad from their side and our side, and it was there was at times where we call a VT, which is a variable timing, and the shells that we send in when you're getting overrun and it explodes off the ground a certain distance, probably half a dozen yards, and the shells, when they explode, shrapnel hit the ground, and anybody that's there not going to survive. And that happened a lot. An awful lot, but that's how we stopped them.
So who was hitting you? Was it the North Koreans, or it was the Chinese directly? So they were hitting you from a distance with the artillery. With the artillery,
but our artillery, the VT, was ours.
Right.
It was called in by our officers because we were getting overrun, and I was on the outside with another medic at the time, and they're coming at us, and they're screaming and hollering as much noise as there was. You could hear them. There was. Christ, there must have been 1,000 of them coming at us, and luckily we were undercover when the VT came into position, because I wouldn't be here today if that didn't happen, and it did stop them, but nevertheless we had to give it up because we sent too many people, and the worst of it was 3 weeks later the armistice came, and if we didn't go up on that hill, we'd have all those guys alive today. But then again, that's a decision that the officers make,
right?
And whatever reason they figured we should have kept it. And I look at it differently. I see that. Let's not go up and let it do it, and let these guys be alive today, which it bothered me. It still bothers me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're telling me a story about my uncle just before we went on the air about
that's
how
right.
he was an infantryman, right?
He was an infantryman
in a rifle range.
Yep, and he was he was in charge of a machine gun outfit, which normally is anywhere from 3 to 5 men, and he gets sent down there and put in a bunker with his machine gun, doing his job, and a round came in, hit that bunker, and the rounds there, some of these they were enormous, and just destroyed that bunker, and collapsed on them, and they're all buried in there. And no way of getting out because they can't get themselves out, and the Chinese at the time came up to their area and took the area over, and I remember your uncle telling me, he said the guys are starting to holler, and he said, be quiet, the Chinese are out there, they're going to find out we're in here, and we can't do that, so let's be quiet. And they were quiet, and then the Americans attacked that area, pushed the Chinese back out again, and then somebody there with Prescott's was hollering, and finally somebody said, listen, I hear a voice coming out of there, and some officer said, there's no one there, and he said, I can hear people. So then finally they listened, they heard it, and they started digging him, they dug him out, and that's why he came home. But he wouldn't have come home if it wasn't for that. So that's another story that I knew about Prescott, and we were friends forever. And great guy, super guy. He had his problems.
Did you guys know each other before you went over?
Nope, didn't know each other. No.
So you met over there?
No, didn't really met over there. I met him when we came
when you
home.
got back, okay.
When we got back, and he got involved with that Korean monument, and then I heard about that, and I got involved with it, and then finally came. He was after that for years and years.
So the first day they drop you off there, and you're in Korea, right?
Yeah.
What was that like? I mean, that must have been scary as hell.
No, it's fairly quiet.
Yeah.
In other words, I came down in Busan, and that was all quiet. And then they sent us up north, and then they send you out for another 5 days refresher course, because you got to remember we've been away from our training. Oh, probably by that time, a month and a half, a long time. So they give you a refresher course on what you should do and the weapons that are there, with their weapons and that stuff. And then they sent us up to the line. There was 13 of us from the medical company. And when the officer looked down at us and said to us, where's your weapons? Because we carried our weapons forever. And we said, well, we're all medics, so we don't have weapons. So he sent us back to medical company, and there was 13 of us that went down there. And so down with the medical company, it was about 5 miles from the MLR, the main line of resistance, and then finally I was there probably about a week, and I volunteered to go to an infantry company, and I did that, and I ended up in King Company, and that's how that went, and then of course they sent all those companies out there at the Pork Chop Hill. That we had 1,300 casualties in 5 days. My God, it was a shame. Oh my, those bodies everywhere. But anyway,
so when you started to hear this artillery, I mean, that must have been unnerving. I mean, that would have scared the hell out of me. I mean,
yeah. Well, that's they
you get used to it.
You really don't get used to it.
No.
And if it lands close, I mean, it'll push your hair around, take your helmet off.
Are you able to sleep at all? I mean, do you?
Oh yeah, you can sleep.
Yeah.
But it wasn't, bunkers weren't that built that well. We thought we were secured in them, but no. A round comes in like it happened to your uncle, and that's gone.
Right.
Yeah, so, and then you never know where the rounds are going to land. And they do that. The only time you're safe was when you're off the main line and you're back. And I remember one time we're going to our kitchen on the main line, and I remember that artillery rounds started coming in to the kitchen area. So they changed the time, and we're at the kitchen area again, and rounds started coming in. So they started suspecting something, and finally they saw, which was a Korean. He was walking on top of the hill with his mess gear, which is fairly bright, and he's swinging it back and forth. He was telling them we're having dinner. And then they send the rounds in. They finally saw him and grabbed him and took him out of there. Yeah. And that's the things that happen that people really don't know about, and why they happen. But sometimes I never trusted some of those people up there. I never knew whether they were with us or they weren't.
Yeah.
But again, the fighters that we had in our companies were Koreans. They were good. And they were good. And they ended up being the best company, the hardest, tough company that ended up in Vietnam was the one from Korea. They were a great outfit. They're all volunteers.
So did you spend the whole 3 years there? Were you there?
No, I spent 13 months in Korea.
Yep.
I went to medical school. I spent another 3 months in Japan, and I went to medical school in Erijima, which was the Annapolis of Japan during the war. And a great school. That's the best I've ever spent in the service, was there, because you dress all the time. You was in Class A uniform all the time, and you ate great food. That was the best place I've ever spent. But I spent a month there. It wasn't long enough to learn how to be a medic. It just wasn't long enough. But anyway, but you did what you had to do.
So you didn't have as much training as you thought you should have had to be
for medical, right?
For medical. So
right.
So in your experience as a medic, I guess as you mentioned, most of the injuries were from shrapnel and from, as opposed to gunshots and that. I mean, you must have seen some pretty mangled bodies.
Oh yeah, they're mangled. When the round comes in, everything's gone.
That takes a while to get used to seeing. I'll bet.
Oh yeah, especially when you know someone.
Right.
Yeah, I had a good friend of mine that was going up at one time, and they were taking stretchers up on Pork Chop Hill. He's running up, and he's got a couple of Korean service workers with him, and he's running up, and artillery started coming down. So he jumped to the left, they jumped to the right, they never got up. And he stood there looking at them, all blown up, and laughed. He started losing it.
Right.
Yeah, he was a good guy, good friend. But these things happen. And I remember another time I'd go up and see this other medic. He was a good friend on a particular hill. We were in the area in Arsenal at the time. And I used to have a tough time finding him when I went to visit him. And I was on a hill behind that. And at one time, he again is out with a couple other guys, Americans, and rounds came in. They started jumping around. And the guys that he was with, they never got up. So from there on in, he said to me, Jimmy, you're never going to find me out of my bunker. When you come into the bunker, I'm not getting outside anymore. So that's what happens. Those guys get killed, and he saw it all. He was right there. Yeah. And that's what happens. And you live with it.
My uncle told me stories about after he got out of the bunker, after he'd been bombed and he was dug out, that of walking down the hill alongside of the truck and just basically picking up body after body after body, dropping them in the truck.
They were everywhere.
Yeah.
Yeah, they were everywhere. Yep, and hopefully, of course, those bodies they picked up and put them on trucks and personnel carriers, they finally got home and they got buried. And so, like I said, there's probably at least 200 bodies that never got taken off Pork Chop Hill at all. And that's the figure they've come up with. And hopefully we can get back on it and we bombed the heck out of it too and shelled it even after. So they should find some of them so that their families, they need that also. They need that. They have these people come home and they bury them. Yeah, there's a closure there. And the worst of it is, it's been 65 years, so their mothers and fathers most likely aren't around anymore. Yeah. And those things happen.
A lot of them still have kids, I'm sure.
Oh, guaranteed.
Yeah.
They had children. I was married when I went overseas. Didn't have no children, but I was married. Yeah. So, and a lot of them did have children, and of course, hopefully they see them. And this is one of the greatest things I think about. If this goes through, that we will start getting those bodies back. There's so many, thousands are still there, thousands of them. Just the Chosen Reservoir, there was an awful lot of them that got killed, plus that guy that lived on Mill Road. He was a sergeant, and it'd be nice to see him in that cemetery across the street from on Route 6. Yep, I'd like to see that.
Would you go back?
Oh, yeah. Again, me to see this country? No. I won't go back to Korea.
You wouldn't go back to Korea?
No. I've been asked, we can go. It doesn't cost any money The Korean government pays for you to go over, pays for your hotel, pays for everything you got. I don't want to see that anymore. I've seen enough bodies. I don't want to see anymore. I just don't want to go back. It's some people find it okay, but I don't. I don't want. There's nothing there I want to see that I miss. There's nothing. So I really don't want to go back. And even though they pay for it, and I get that all, I belong to an association of Korean veterans, and they have their trips every year, and they've always asking me to go, and I won't go. Nope, I don't want to see that. Some people, you got to remember, there's only really, when you think about it, and there's only really, in every war, there's probably 4 to 5% of people actually fight in combat. Only 4 and 5%. And you say, oh my God, that's not many. No, it isn't many. But when you think like the Second World War, when you had 18 million guys in the service, 4% of that is a lot, as they did in the Second World War. And with us, same thing. It was 4 to 5% that fought, and it takes 10 guys in the back working to keep a man on line doing his job. It takes at least 10 back there, and if you're fortunate enough to get that, and everybody's got to do their job. If they're not there, you can't do yours. So I'm not knocking or that they've done it, because you need them to be there. And if it happened to me, would I be fortunate enough not to see anything? But it just didn't. It's 4%.
So do you think about this a lot? Or only when guys like me call you and bother you to come in on the radio? Do you think about your days in Korea a lot?
Well, yeah, it never leaves you.
Every day? You think about it some point of every day?
Something every day comes up. There's something, some incident. And I used to work. I'd work to keep my mind steady all the time, and I've done well with that. I've done real good with that. And so that works. And that's what you got to do. You've got to do something to take your mind off it, because some people, again, they'd come home and they commit suicide. And you notice now there's 30% more than there ever was that committed suicide, whatever the reasons. And that never entered my mind. They never did. Was
it difficult for you to come back and readjust?
I don't think so. I really don't. I came when I left Korea. I was there 13 months, and when I left there, and of course I was on ice cream cone when the war was when the armistice was signed, and the 27th of July, 1953, the Chinese shelled us all day long. I was online, and we were getting hit all day long throughout the whole front lines, and we wouldn't shell back. I guess the Americans didn't want to aggravate them for any reason, but I had an officer in my hill that I was on. We would get shelled there, and he was a fellow that called in artillery, and he was calling in artillery. He was so angry that we wouldn't fire back, because he can spot them. He said, I see him, I got him here, and I've got a fire mission for you. And the Americans just wouldn't fire. They started firing back somewhere around 5 o'clock that night, and we were getting hit all day long. They started in the morning at 10 o'clock, and the war was going to end at 10 o'clock at night. And all day long, we got shelled all day. So
they wanted to kill as many Americans as they could before the armistice kicked in at 10 at night.
Probably that what they were doing. Yeah. And then at 10 o'clock, it was really eerie. It was so quiet. My God, we've got all this noise all day long, and all the time I'm on that hill, we got artillery coming in all the time. But it was so quiet. It was really eerie. I was actually looking to hear something instead of being as quiet as it was. It's really unnerving, really, to be like that. And then the next day, when we woke up in the morning, we looked across to where the enemy was, and they're all out there dancing and putting their flags up, and they're having a great time. Everything was over, and that's the only time that I felt that probably the armistice had worked. I never thought that night that was going to, and we sent patrols out that night to make sure that we didn't get we didn't get hit by them, that they were just playing something on us, and then they were going to start the war. We all suspected that they weren't done, but they were. When you saw them out there dancing and stuff, yeah, and then they told us, okay, we're going to pull off our hill, and we had to take all our bunkers apart and cut all the sandbags up and throw everything down and let's move. And then we moved out of there, and then that's when they shipped us to another area. We were putting in the second line of defense. There's 3 lines in Korea, and they're all named after states. And the second line we had was called the Kansas line. So we're working there for 3 or 4 months. So we finally built that second line. They had the first line going, the second, and the third line. And so that's what we did. We just dug and did this, that. And being a medic, I didn't have to do all that work, which was great, really, when you think of it.
So was there ever a point you see these guys dancing and all of a sudden everything just stops? Was there ever a point where you said to yourself, what the hell was all this for? What did we just do? Did you question it?
The thing is, I look at that as they was happy as we were. And that's the reason why they were dancing. We weren't dancing on our end.
No, but I mean, did you ever wonder, all of a sudden it just ended like that?
Yeah.
And you say, well, what did we just do all of this for?
Yes.
You did.
Of course, you think about that. And,
yeah.
And you know how it started and why it started. And it was started by Russia. There's no question. It was started by them. And they just, but again, we had some Secretary of the State, and I can't think of his name right now, that they asked them about where America, what country would they protect, and for some reason he never mentioned Korea. So they just took it as, hey, they might not do anything here, so why don't we take it over? And I can't think of his name, but it's a shame that's how it started and why it started. And of course, the Koreans themselves. They went. Their army didn't have artillery. They didn't have tanks. We didn't have all that stuff for them. So when they got attacked, of course, they walked right over them. They were in Seoul in a short time. Seoul was only 50 miles from the front lines, so they walked over them, and they did that 2 or 3 different times. I'll just tell you a funny story. There was one time I was back at Camp Casey, and that's why I saw Marilyn Monroe, and I got pictures of her. And I should have bought one for you, and I'll get one for you.
All right.
That I took, and of her, and she became my hero because she came to Korea, and then when she was there, put on shows for us. Wow, she was great, really. Yeah. And but the thing is that the next day, in our companies over the loudspeaker said, Marilyn Monroe is coming by all the companies, so you guys want to see her, get out in the street. It was a dirt road. So we did. We got out there. Sure enough, she's coming by with the general in his Jeep, and she's visiting all the outfits. So she became my hero because nobody else did that. Bob Hope didn't do that.
No,
nobody
really? Wow.
did that.
Wow.
But she did. So she
Bob
became,
Hope went into a lot of different
Oh, yeah, he
things.
did. But
he didn't go there. He didn't get that close, right?
No, well, he didn't get that. He didn't go.
Yeah.
But she was the only one that came to every individual outfit after having a show.
That's incredible.
And she became my hero. Yeah. She did.
So you look back, here we are 65 years later. We're talking about it 65 years later. Do you think it was worth it? Was it?
Well, they seem to think so, that somewhere along the line, we were going to have a problem with Russia. We knew that. Somewhere along the line. And of course, as I say, as I'm going through basic training, everybody's going to Germany because they figured that's where the war was going to start. But Korea was going, and it was going, and they started it, and whatever the reason they thought they were going to take, and they were going to take South Korea easy. It was very easy to take it because the troops weren't trained at the time. They're trained today, so it'd be really hard for them to come down. They wouldn't take it now. They're by themselves, and if the Chinese didn't come in, we'd have won that war. But they came in, and the worst of it was, I had friends of mine that they get killed at the very beginning at the Chosin Reservoir, and the Chinese came in, and they told MacArthur's intelligence that they got Chinese, and they kept saying they're not there. They kept doing that, and once they hit, There was no stopping them. There was too many.
What was it like when you came back? I mean, we saw what happened in Vietnam,
Yeah.
and the troops are not very well received when they came home. Obviously, the troops from World War II were. You
Oh,
guys
yeah.
kind of came in the
They were
middle,
heroes.
but
They
we
were.
kind of just ended this thing and walked away very quietly. When you
We
guys
did.
came back, were you welcomed home?
Well, a lot of people thought that I had moved out of the state. They didn't even know I was in the service. But that was okay. But no, I never heard anybody complain.
But there were no big parades or anything like that?
No,
or-
there was no big parades. There
Yeah.
was none. And I'm involved with parades in Fairhaven that I've been for years with George Brownell. He's a great guy for that. And we just finished a Memorial Day parade, which is actually my favorite day, Memorial Day, to the guys I left behind.
But you guys
Yeah.
just basically came home and just went right back to
Yeah,
life.
I went back to life, and I started working right. I was going to take time off, and then the '54 hurricane hit at that time, and when it did, my father was a contractor, and he said to me, "You got to come back to work." And I said, "Dad, I just got home. I'm taking time off." He said, "No, I need you. We got a lot of roofs that be," and I went to work and I'd worked ever since.
Probably just as good that you did, right? Kept you
The
busy
best
and-
thing to happen to
Yeah.
me.
Jim, I've got to take a commercial break. Can you
Yep.
stick around and take some phone calls? We've got some folks that would like to talk to you
Sure.
here. All right, 508-996-0500 if you'd like to talk to Jim Leal. We're talking with Jim Leal from Fairhaven. He's he was in the Army Medical Service in Korea. We're talking about the summit between Trump and Kim Jong Un last night, and how he wants to would love to be able to see an end to this whole thing. We have not seen an official end to this war yet. It's going to reach its 65th anniversary in July, and it still goes on. One of the things we're hoping for is an agreement between North Korea and the U.S. to officially end this war. But perhaps the most important aspect of what's happening right now, in Jim's mind and in my mind as well, is the fact that North Korea has agreed to search for and send home the 8,000 or 9,000 POW or MIA remains that are still in North Korea, and that would provide a lot of closure for an awful lot of people. Let me take the break. We'll come right back. We'll get your calls for Jim after this on WBSM. All right, welcome back to the program. I can't believe an hour's almost up at this point. We've got Jim Leal with us. Many of you know Jim. He's from Fairhaven, Korean War veteran, worked very, very hard along with my uncle, Howard Prescott, the late Howard Prescott, to get the Korean War monument built over at the, or a memorial. Is it a monument or a memorial? Is there a big difference?
It's a monument.
It's a monument,
Yes, and my picture's on there. And your uncle put it on there.
Is that right?
Yeah.
I was over there looking this morning, too. I was looking at it and took some pictures of it before I came on the air. So we're talking about the summit. We're talking about closure to this whole thing. And now we'd like to welcome your calls. 508-996-0500. Thanks for hanging on. You're on with Jim Leal on WBSM.
Good morning, Barry. Good morning, Jim.
Good morning. How are you?
Good to hear your voice, Jim. This is Greg from over in East Fairhaven, your buddy.
Okay. Hi, Greg. How are you?
I haven't seen you in a while.
I know.
Isn't this wonderful?
Yes, it is. I think it is. I really believe it
I'm
is.
glad to see it happen so that...
Oh, my God.
So you guys who served, and you know what, Jim? All the years I've known you, I've never thanked you for your service. And we never have really had a lot of conversation about it. I want to take this time to thank you for your service and all those boys who did serve and those who didn't come home. Look what this president has done for them now.
Oh,
Let's hope it goes through this way and continues on.
Oh, my God. I'm so happy about that. I want to see them
you
home.
Would be.
Oh,
when
yes.
I heard the news, I said Jim Leal is going to be dancing in the street.
Oh, yes.
Awesome.
Definitely. Definitely.
And you give your lovely bride, Dolores, a kiss for me, and you have a great day, guys.
I will. Thanks for calling.
Appreciate the call. 508-996-0500. You're up next with Jim Leal on WBSM. Go ahead.
Yes, sir. If I may, can I just speak to Jim? I just think that you guys are the greatest, along with a lot of World War II veterans, but the Korean War veterans too, especially since they didn't get the same kind of support. I think you guys are the greatest of the greatest generation.
Well, thank you for saying that.
Okay, that's all I wanted to say.
Thank you for saying that.
Appreciate it. Thank you very much. 508-996-0500. You're next with Jim Leal. Go ahead.
Oh, good afternoon, Barry. I didn't know you had a guest. I just caught your show. I just finished lunch.
Yeah, I was talking to Jim Leal, a Korean War veteran, about about his service and about the summit and the armistice, and hopefully an end to this war sometime soon.
Well, I would like to thank him for his service because my dad is a Korean War vet, and I am a peacetime vet myself. Mm. And I'd like to thank him for his service, and I will contact you later about something different.
Sounds good.
Thank you for saying that.
Appreciate it very much. Let me take the next break. 508-996-0500 if you'd like to chat with Jim Leal, who served in the Korean War. And we're talking about the summit last night, the dramatic, historic summit. And what do you think about Donald Trump so far? You think he's doing a good job?
Oh, I think it's great. My God. I didn't vote for him, and I didn't, but I will. Guaranteed. I've never seen anybody do what he's doing. Never seen it done. And I think only the reason for that is he's not a politician. And for a guy that has all his money, needs all these problems, he doesn't need these problems. But I think it's so great that he's there and he's doing it. He's doing. I'm so happy with this. And again, it's the reason for that is I want to see those bodies home.
Right.
Yeah.
Let me take the next break. We'll come back for your call. Stay right there at 1420 WBSM. We'll be back in a second or two. All right, got a couple more minutes with Jim Leal, a Korean War veteran. We're talking about the summit last night. Let's get your calls in. We'll start right over here. You're next on the air with Jim. Go ahead. Hello, hello. All right, we can't hear you, so we'll just go to the next one. You're up next then, WBSM. Go ahead. Hello, are you there?
Hello.
Yes.
I would like to thank all the military people who served in the military. And I'm not really a Trump supporter, only because loose lips sink ships. And I think he talks a lot before he speaks, and it's not good. But I will say this. I think he did a very, very good thing in what he did with North Korea and standing up to them. Because at some point we have to draw the line. And I think he drew the line.
Right.
And I think it saved a lot of people, a lot of anguish, and a lot of destruction because of what he did.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. Appreciate your call. Let me grab the next one. 508-996-0500. You're next with Jim Leal. Go ahead.
Hey, good afternoon, and thank you for your sacrifices. So guys like me and a lot of other people can get on the radio and speak our minds.
Isn't that great?
You know, it is. And I got a question. It's just a curiosity question. You said you didn't vote for Mr. Trump. And once again, I commend you on your honesty. And now you're happy for what's going on, which we all know is just art. It's really, you know, all right. I guess you could be really happy for, you know, getting the remains home. That'll probably happen. Anything else we all know is we don't know. But having said that, how did you think, and this is just a curiosity question, of the president before he did this? And did it get better, your opinion, or did it get worse as we led up to this? I'm just curious.
All right, let him answer.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll say it got better. It did. I was kind of amazed to hear him speak as he did and what he was doing. And like everyone else, we suspected that probably he wasn't as strong as he is, and it's proven that he is strong. I'm talking about Trump. He did a great job, and I know of anyone that probably would have done what he did, and it makes me feel well. And as I mentioned, I've seen this while I'm still alive, and a lot of the people I know, as my friend Howie Prescott, he's already been gone 2 or 3 years, and he never saw this happen, but I saw it happen, and I'm so happy because you got to remember I'm 86 years old, so I've been around since the beginning of time. And it's a great thing to see that happen, because there's nothing worse than it wasn't a war, and they keep telling you that. It was a conflict, and I hope that they finally end this and say this is the war's all over. I really want to see that happen, but more than anything else, I want to see the bodies home.
Well, you know, we've got the anniversary, 65th anniversary of the armistice coming up in July. So there's plenty of time between now and July for them to formalize an end to this thing. And wouldn't that be nice if they were to do it on the 65th anniversary?
Oh, that'd be so great. 65 years, it'd be so great. Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I'd love to see it. And I'm really happy with it. I watched that all night long, and I hardly slept last night because of that. But it's been that way for the few days. And you never know how Trump was going, but he did the right thing. He's a negotiator, and he did the right thing, and I think he made them all nervous. And he's, as they said, he's a great guy. And I mean, let's face it, for this job, he was the best man we could put in there.
Jim Leal, I appreciate you coming in and spending an hour with us today. Thank you very much for your service, and thank you for sharing your story and your comments on all of this. Appreciate it very much.
And thank you for saying that, Jerry. Gary. Yeah.
All right.
Yes, good.
We are going to take a break for the news. The news is coming up in just a few seconds. We're going to be back with your calls on the summit and more, so stay tuned.